Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the talk today. As you can see, I am in a rather different clothing. So that's a change. And actually, when I went to my wardrobe to wear something, it wasn't actually this. But when I put it on, I couldn't button up. And then I realized I have grown. I've grown sideways. I haven't grown taller. And accepting that, well, it's just not going to button up. And I'll just have to look for something else that would be more fitting. So acceptance is very powerful to not getting stressed up over what surprises us, what we didn't expect. And there's no need for the mind to get all worked up, creating a catastrophe in the mind over something that we can't help it in the present moment. So if I would like to get back into that top that I had planned on wearing, then it just means that I have to plan on doing more exercise and cutting down on some of my favorite foods to bring my body back to where it was 5 years ago, probably about 1 to 2 kg lighter. So I don't have to get upset about a change that it has happened that I didn't expect. So I'm not sure how many changes in your life that you didn't expect, but the reality is things will always be changing. So now I'm going to use my slides to illustrate a bit of that. Okay, so this is not the one I had in mind. So let me just adjust that. Okay. So those of us who are living in Singapore would be very familiar with this particular infographic that has been going around. That from Tuesday onwards, the group size is going to increase from 5 to 10. That means we can actually hang out with our members of family and also friends, not just in groups of 5, but groups of 10. And we can actually not wear masks outdoors. It would be optional. Is everyone happy about this? Is everyone looking like the ostrich? Yay! Or are some people looking like this? The reality is, no matter what change comes our way, yes, there will be people happy about it, but there will also be people not very happy about it. Like group size, why won't some people be happy about that? Because some people will be worried that their loved ones might get infected. The risk goes up. And if you are a food delivery person, you might not actually be happy about it because it means that the demand for food delivery is likely to drop. And when it comes to mask wearing, some people will also be concerned about the spread if not everyone is wearing a mask. And if you are a mask manufacturer or mask seller, you may not be very happy about it either, because it means that the demand for masks will go down. So what does this tell us? Is a change always welcomed by everyone? Or is a change welcomed by some and not welcomed by others? So this boils down to perspective. What is our perspective? If we are the mask sellers, we wouldn't be happy. But for those of us who now feel that we don't have to wear masks, we would be happy about it. So it depends on which side of things you're looking at from. So whatever situation you're in, which perspective are you taking? The negative perspective or the positive perspective? Because you have a choice on choosing the perspective. So if I was a food delivery person, I might say, oh, wow, now, the food delivery demand is going down. Perhaps now I'm going to use this time to learn a new skill, to join a course, or to get another job that would not be subject to such fluctuation. So when we accept a situation, we actually find that we have opportunities and possibilities that we may not have thought about in the first instance. But if our mind goes into complaining about the change, then our mind is blind to opportunities and possibilities because it is frozen, it is stuck in the complaining, catastrophizing mode of the mind. So if we feel repulsed by something, or we want to resist something, or we're in a state of shock, not only our mind feels troubled, but our body reacts to it. It feels tense. We might even have muscle ache. We may even experience trouble sleeping. We may feel pain, or we lose our appetite. Or the opposite of that is that we start to crave for sugar and salt. So we start to eat more snacks. Or we might get headaches because we can't accept what is happening. So how we react to a situation depends on our perspective and depends on whether we're going to reduce the resistance to the change. Complaining about the change is a form of resistance. So the stress that we experience, the whole reactivity, depends a lot on the resistance we have towards the change. What are some of the forms of resistance? Expressions like, oh, buay tahan, can't stand this. How can? Why like that? Why people so stupid? So these kind of statements are expressions of resistance. Then we also start to blame or criticize and condemn. Like, why do we pay these people so much money and they don't know what they're doing? Or why our bosses are not using their brain? And so on and so forth. Notice whenever you have this kind of expression, how is the body feeling? Chances are the body tenses up because it goes into a reactive mode of wanting to fight. That's why we get angry, we get frustrated, we get agitated, we get annoyed. These are all the different forms of anger. Or we get fed up. We want to give up. We want to resign. We want to transfer, right? We just want to forget it. Except that we can't just forget it when we say forget it, because the mind latches on to what we are not accepting in the change. So if we want to reduce the stress, because the change is not going to reverse itself just because we get upset and angry and we scream and shout, it's not going to just disappear. But what if we turn into it and try to understand why this change? Did the people introduce this change may have missed something? And when we start to understand and be curious, and we do find that they may have missed something, that is an opportunity for us to highlight it. And that is an opportunity for us to be able to influence. But if we are all reactive, chances are we're not going to be of positive influence or even be able to influence, because people are just going to look at us and say, oh my gosh, she is so worked up. She's getting so emotional. Notice whenever you have this kind of assessment of someone, are you likely to listen? Because the reality is, when you see someone who is so worked up and emotional, you basically want to just move your body back and create a distance, because you are not going to expect anything logical or rational coming out of that person's mouth. So we want people to listen to us. It's important for us to be able to be calm. But first is to accept that this change is happening. This change is already here. And if we resist it, we're just going to create a lot of unhappiness for ourselves. And we will miss the opportunities that this change will bring. So I recall when there was a situation like that in an organization I was in, I was actually resistant to one project that was going to happen because I really believe that adopting this project was not in the long-term interests of the organization. And the people around me, in fact, were pushing for this project and presenting information that were not even accurate. But I was not in the position to actually change anyone's mind, or at least not the people that matter, because I couldn't reach the person at the top who was somehow convinced. And maybe that person has decided on this change because of some information or assumptions that he already has made. So certain assumptions may cause us not to change our mind. And that means our mind is fixed. Just as in my case, my mind was fixed that this change wasn't good for the organization. So by digging my heels in, guess what happened? My boss just gave the project to someone else. Says, Angie, you don't have to manage it. Because she knew that I wasn't for it. So she didn't trust me to deliver it. So I created that situation for myself because I stuck my heel into the ground and refused to accept that this change coming my way is not going to be something I can resist. And if I hadn't resisted, I would have been a key person in managing this project. So while at that time I could have been resentful, I could have blamed her for being unfair, but I have every part to play in the resulting decision that was taken because of my resistance to accept the change. So if you are in this situation as well, it's good for you to now reflect on how that is affecting your career in an organization or your influence in the family. Because something that's happening, when we have a lot of resistance, we have a lot of stress. Applying acceptance really helps us to embrace the opportunities that come our way with the change. And this is contributing to our mental resilience. Because in mental resilience, it's about being open. The mind is open to new ideas, to new things that are going to be happening, whether we like it or not. So when our mind is open, we're able to adapt. So accepting that our idea may not be always the best. And even if we have the best idea, it may not be accepted. So accepting that an idea will not be accepted increases our mental resilience. Because then we just let go and we move on. And then we adapt. So how do we do this? So I'm a mindfulness trainer. And one of the key techniques is just to stop. Stop this mind from going on about the narrative. Stop this mind from wanting to fight, to go against something that is just beyond us, to stop it from happening or to change the course of this big thing that is already rolling in our direction. It's like a big boulder coming in our direction. We're not going to be able to stop it. So just stop. Take a breath. And we take a breath and we really just feel this breath going through our body, just as we done earlier on. And to just sit there for a few moments and enjoy our breath. Then our mind will stop the narratives, the commentary, like why like that? Why are these people so stupid? Why don't they listen to me? Why can't they get the act together? Why don't you just do what I say? Da, 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 da. It's to stop all those chattering that's going through in our mind. And when we take this breath, we also become aware that, wow, that we have all these feelings in us. And some of these feelings are just like eating us up from the inside. We let people get under our skin, especially the people we don't like. We want to change them. Whoever this is, a colleague, a friend that we feel, she's taking all the wrong decisions, or we want to change our child, we want to change our parent. They get under our skin, means that what happens? They're always living in our mind. Then we have no peace in our mind. So when we stop, take a breath, observe these feelings, and let it go by just staying focused on the breathing. That is how we train our mind to be resilient, to be able to let go of all those thoughts that are cluttering our mind, that are causing our mind to be so confused, clouded, like a fog. That's why mindfulness has become such a popular antidote to stress. And it's not about taking medication to relax our body, because we can relax our body, our mind is still busy. So remember this technique. Just stop, take a breath. Let the thought go. Because if we don't, we might actually become anxious. We might start to have excessive worrying going on in the mind. And we start to feel fatigue, restless. Our muscles may feel tired or sore, waking up with neck pain. This has nothing to do with your pillow, so don't waste money buying memory foam pillow. It has everything to do with the stress that's coming from your thoughts and that is causing your neck to tense up while you're sleeping. That's why you wake up with neck ache, pain in the neck. And we may have concentration that's impaired. We become easily irritated, and this causes us to even have more problems in our relationships, especially with people who are close to us. They tend to get the brunt of our anger, our resentment. And if this prolongs, it could lead to difficulties in sleeping that turns into insomnia because our mind just won't stop. And untreated anxiety can lead to depression. So if you are feeling anxious or you notice somebody in your life feeling anxious, perhaps you can suggest to the person to come and do a mindfulness course to learn how to de-stress by training the mind to pause, by training the mind to let go and to have less rumination and worrying. It is not a switch. If it was a switch, it would be easy, right? We just go tick, stop thinking, let's just pause and stay present. It doesn't work that way because your mind may have already gotten to a habit of worrying. And for you to change habit, it takes awareness and it takes practice. A practice of learning how not to worry. What happens when we don't address the stress? This can lead to many ailments in the body. I've talked about the headaches, the irritability, the difficulty in sleeping, the anxiety, the panic attacks, and depression. Your heart may be suffering from palpitation. Your blood pressure goes up, cholesterol level goes up, increases your heart attack rate, the risk of heart attack. And the digestive system may have increase or decrease in appetite. You may experience heartburn, diarrhea spontaneously, constipation, and even irritable bowel syndrome, gastric. And the risk of diabetes goes up because stress actually causes a lot of glucose to be burned by the body, but not in pause in a healthy way. It's not like when you're doing exercising where your muscles are really burning those glucose. Whereas the glucose burn in the body due to stress, it's different and it causes you to crave for sugar and salt. Reproductive system may be affected. For women, irregular or painful periods, reduce in sexual desire, and for men, it could be low sperm production, impotence, and also reduce sexual desire. And we may be having outbreak on our skin, whether it's acne, whether it's eczema or psoriasis, and our immune system is compromised. So there's a lot of physical health cost when our stress is not being addressed. So when we actually practice mindfulness, we become much more aware of that. Now, as some of you have indicated that your stress is coming from health. First of all, what are the assumptions in our life about health? Are we going to stay healthy forever? The answer is no. It's not. This body is not built to stay healthy forever. If we were born with no birth defects, we are already very lucky, because some babies are born with congenital conditions. And they may even have to have surgery at a very early age in life, like even as an infant. For some later on. And for some, they will have to live with their condition for the rest of their life. For those of us who have been healthy for most part of our life, we are very blessed. But we need to have the right perspective that it's a matter of time that things are going to fall apart in our body because of aging. Nothing in life is going to last forever. Certainly not these organs that have been working 24/7 since this body was born. And look how it's grown, right? I mean, look at your own body. It has grown from being an infant to a toddler, to a child, to a teenager, and now an adult. And also to be accepting that death will come our way, not if, but when. So when we are accepting that this body is going to fall sick and it's going to decline at some point, probably already. I mean, like I can't read without taking my glasses off because I'm short-sighted. For some of you, you can't read without your glasses after age of maybe 55 because now you're long-sighted. So these are signs of aging. And in some cases, you can't hear properly because the hearing is declining. The muscles in the ear, it's no longer as elastic. So death is going to come our way. And if we can't accept that people in our life will die, then we are going to end up suffering a lot. And that is through our unwillingness to accept that each life has an expiry date. Every one of our body has an expiry date. Even the canned food in our cupboards have an expiry date. Everything has an expiry date. So how do we best prepare for these expiry dates that we have no control over? I would say have a conversation about the end of life. So I talk about end of life because I'm talking about something that's going to happen for sure. I have no idea when. I'm 59 this year. I may have another few days. I may have another few months. I may have another few years. I have no idea. And that's the reality. My brother woke up one morning and he had a stroke. He didn't think that he was going to die. He was planning his trip actually at that time to Russia to attend a seminar, to be giving a talk at the conference. This was a few years ago. He had no idea that he wasn't going to make that trip. Neither do I have any idea whatever trip I plan, whether I will actually be on that trip. That is the reality of life. It's uncertain. So having a conversation at end of life care is important, as my brother didn't have a conversation with us or with his family members. So after he had a stroke, we didn't know whether what he actually wanted, whether he wanted to be kept alive, even though he had half of his brain removed. It was very sad to see him, a very sharp-minded person who has done a lot in this world. He was working for one of the stat boards, and then all of a sudden, he's no longer the same. And he will no longer be the same because half of his brain was literally removed. He was able to speak slightly. He was able to write slightly, but we couldn't have a conversation. He couldn't stay awake for more than 5 to 10 minutes. I mean, what am I to expect, right? Half his brain has been removed. We all need both the frontal lobes to be working in order for us to be gainfully employed, to be able to have a intelligent conversation, and to be able to solve problems and to conduct ourselves, like giving a talk or having a exchange with someone else, prepare food. He wasn't able to do any of that. So we all had to guess what he wanted. And it was very hard on us. And it actually strained some relationships because what his wife preferred wasn't exactly what his siblings wanted, that included me. So as a result, relationships were strained. But if he had communicated, and better still had it put down on paper, we could all refer to it and know what his wishes are. So I urge each one of you to have a conversation with your loved ones, that in the event you can't make healthcare decisions for yourself, what is it that you would like? So I'm an advanced care plan facilitator, so are some of my colleagues in Brahm Centre. So in the month of March and April, all the way till end of next month, we're going to waive all the fees to facilitate this. You can make a donation, but we would really like to encourage everyone to take advantage of this and have an advanced care plan put together. And the other two things are the lasting power of attorney, because in the event that we can't manage our own financial matters, there is someone now who can step in to take over and ensure that there are funds that can be accessed to take care of our health and all the necessary financial obligations to be met. And of course, a will. Dying is not optional. Dying is a certainty. So we need to plan for certainties. So instead of being worried about talking about death, is to face it head on or face on, so that we can truly focus on living. Because once we actually open a conversation about dying, we become so much more aware that life is so uncertain and it's actually very short, and we would make every day, every moment count. We would less likely get into conflicts and arguments and wanting people to, to be convinced of what we believe in. We're able to have much more harmonious relationships because we know that at the end of the day, this moment matters, and it's not about being in a disagreement and having all the hard feelings. So this brings to mind, I actually had a cup that a friend bought for me in the US when we were on a trip. And on that cup, it says peace on it. And while I was away for a few days teaching a retreat, my partner at home broke the cup. He broke the cup and then he sent me a message and said, "I'm very sorry I broke the cup." Yes, that cup meant something to me. But as what the cup was conveying all this time when I used it, peace. So to have the peace in my heart, which is peace in my mind, that even when the cup is broken, I won't forget what peace is. That's to be able to accept that this cup was never meant to last because it was porcelain. Perhaps a plastic cup would last forever because they don't break. But a cup that is made of clay or porcelain, glass, they are going to break one day. It's a matter of when. Not that it'll never break, it will break. And that moment came, it broke. And I said, it's okay. It's only a cup. The relationship is more important than a cup. I can always buy the cup again or buy a different cup. But if I had gotten angry and I started to scream and shout and started telling him off about being so clumsy and being so inconsiderate to use my cup and then break it, I would have set back that relationship. And for what? A cup? Does it really make sense? So learning to put in perspective what's really important, which is all our good relationships. These are relationships that we can lean on, especially in times of need. That we do not damage our relationship over things. Even when I had a helper many years ago, and she was washing my crystal glass, a Hoya crystal glass from Japan that was bought for me for a special occasion. And she wasn't being very mindful and she knocked it against the tap and it chipped. She was very apologetic. And she said, "Madam, can you buy a new one and I will pay for it?" If I had agreed to her paying for it, it would have cost her the entire month of her salary. I can live without that vase. It's not essential. It's more important I have a good helper, a helper who has confidence in working in my home, and a helper that knows that I can be forgiving, and a helper who feels that she can tell me the truth without being terrified and being punished, and foregoing a whole month's salary, which she needs to send home to her children. If that vase no longer exists, it's not going to make any difference to my life. But someone like her would have made a big difference in my life if I lost her. So people are more important than things. Change comes in many forms. We are going to lose things. We're going to break things. But we don't have to break relationships. Because relationships are what makes us happy, not things. One day when we die, we're going to leave behind all our things. So when my father passed away and he didn't leave us many things, it was okay because he earned it. He had the freedom and right to give it to whoever he wanted, even if it's his girlfriend. It's his money. I still love him. And when I can accept, I'm free, I'm happy. So I know some of the things I'm sharing with you may not be what you would expect, but change is going to always happen in our life. So when we have a growth mindset, it's freedom. We were able to persevere in the face of failure. And we're going to put our effort into building new skills. We find inspiration in others' success instead of being jealous of other people's success. We will embrace challenges, accept criticisms, and desire to continue learning and build our abilities. That is what a growth mindset is, embracing of change. The opposite of that is a fixed mindset. It's absolutely limiting. We want to avoid challenges. We would like, no, we don't want anything difficult. We just want things to be easy. Life was never meant to be easy. And then we tend to be giving up easily, threatened by other people's success. We get jealous, envious. And we want to look smart. And the effort becomes fruitless, and we ignore feedback, and our abilities are not going to be expanded. So the growth mindset opens up our mind, and it gives us freedom to look at the new opportunities and possibilities are right in front of us. So when we have a growth mindset, we will be much happier, and we can embrace change with less stress. So I didn't become this way accidentally. It's because of the very positive influences in my life and learning how to be mindful, living more in the present. And I'm very grateful to many teachers, including John Kabat-Zinn, who introduced Mindfulness Based Stress Reduction. So I'm very blessed to have been able to take this course and become a teacher and certified to teach this course. And his book is so apt. It's called Full Catastrophe Living, because the catastrophe is built in our mind. So the point of this course is to reduce stress. It was introduced, first of all, to cancer patients, because as somebody who's diagnosed with cancer, it would be very stressful thinking about how much time the person has left, and also the painful experiences in the body that one has to go through in receiving the treatment for cancer. So mindfulness can retrain the mind, and it also changes the brain. I'm not going to get too much into that because it's incorporated into the courses that I teach. But this is an interesting scan to show you that even a 10-minute meditation changes the construct of how the brain activity is going on. So before there's just so much activity, this is where we feel confused, clouded, and foggy in the mind. And after a 10-minute meditation, your mind clears up. And in the field of neuroplasticity, this is one scan from the Harvard Medical School, Dr. Sarah Lazar's lab, whom we collaborate with in educating the schools in mental health literacy and the changes in the brain. And this image on the right shows that this part of the brain thickens, which is the prefrontal cortex. And this part here is the insula, which is the part of the brain that helps us to become much more aware of how our body is feeling. Is it getting all reactive? So when we become more mindful, more aware, we're able to take that intervention to reduce stress. Another course that I teach and is offered at Brahm Center is a mindfulness-based cognitive therapy. And this course helps us to be aware of how our thoughts, our assumptions result in our behavior and how we react to situations. So with that awareness, we can change our perception. Resulting from that, we can change the outcomes. So this course has been proven to be very effective against depression, anxiety, and also relapse. And I'm going to be offering a new course. So those of you who may be looking for something to journey on with Brahm Center or with me, is the Mindful Compassion course. It's development of compassion in ourselves as well as to others. So in being more mindful, it's not about being more self-centered. It's about being more aware of doing self-care, but also developing care for others. that is not imposing in nature, that is not suffocating for others, but rather care that is compassionate. So if you are available, do take up this special anniversary offer. I'm going to limit this class to 20 so that we have a very interactive session during the 8 weeks. So I'd like to end by sharing that, if we want to have a positive life, we're going to have to develop positive attitudes, including embracing change, befriending change, and not be fearful of change. Actually, as I earlier pointed out, it's not that every change that we're fearful of or resist, it's only the change that doesn't suit us.